Hey everyone, the Portrait here. First of all, here is a short footage that I found from one of my old streams, in which I drew the hair in less than 1 minute real time. The subject is a celebrity from another country a viewer suggested, and I was just positioning my compressed charcoal and doing this pattern that ended up pretty much surprisingly what I was looking for. The highlights are there, and even the shape and edges on top of the hair just came out in a stylized way. Goes to show you can always experiment with your tools and discover new potentials. And a quick word on your response to my last commentary about tracing or using other methods like grid to start a drawing. Link is in the description if you haven't seen the video yet. I'm surprised that almost 100% of you have the same attitude as I do regarding this subject. So everyone's pretty much on the same page, which boils down to it is absolutely fine as long as you don't limit yourself with it. It is just a method and tool like anything else. It depends on how you are using it. Okay, the following video is a tutorial on how I draw hair, which is one of the fairly common questions that I get. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe and ring that bell, of course. And also the best way to support this art channel is by joining me on YouTube as an official member, which is basically YouTube's own version of Patreon. You can join via the blue button right next to the red subscriber button. Or if you are using a cell phone, you can join using the link in the description. Or you can use Patreon, it's very similar. Cause I love to make contents for this channel and I hope it is worth something to you. Alright, time for the tutorial. Any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. This video was made a while ago while I was having a cold, so the voice is a little bit off. I apologize and enjoy. In this video, I am going to show you my technique of drawing hair. So first, I'm going to demonstrate the general technique with this fairly basic reference. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration with another picture that has a little bit more structure to it. All you need is soft charcoal. Compressed charcoal works. I'm using compressed charcoal, but it has to be soft. And what is actually vital, extremely vital to my technique is these little blocks, these little squares. Let me show you on camera. It looks a little bit dirty. These are basically hard rubber erasers. They cost very little, and all I did is that I cut them into little cubes. Let me just draw this one first, and I'm just gonna ignore everything else, and I'm not gonna pay too much attention to like the exact proportion or anything like that. It's about the technique of how to create that effect. Hair is one of those things that can be very complicated and intimidating to draw. But I want to show you today that don't worry about all that. So once you have the overall kind of shape of the hair, all I do is just I'm just gonna color it in. I'm gonna fill it in. Black is not technically a color, but you know what I mean. I'm gonna fill it in, and depends on how dark you make this part is depends on how dark the hair is. So if the hair is blonde, but it's under also very bright light, I would make it much lighter. Sometimes people ask me like, how do you draw blonde hair, brunette, or whatever. There's really no such thing as how to draw blonde hair versus brown hair. It's about how bright the actual hair is. It's about what kind of lighting condition the hair is under. So yeah, so that's a kind of a myth. People think that you treat different type of hair, you treat it differently, when the only thing you're looking at is really just value, right? Okay. Alright, once I did this, this guy's hair is a kind of dark brown. The highlights is there. Don't worry about the highlights, we'll be able to put that in there. The darkest part of his hair is pretty dark, so I might make certain parts a little bit darker. So at this point, just look at the shape of the hair in general. Ignore the details. Look at which part is dark, which part is mid-tone, which part is a little bit lighter. And you can, when you fill it in, you can actually use the charcoal that goes in the direction of the hair too. That I find that helps a lot too sometimes. So this part is pretty dark, and then it gets lighter, but when it gets close to the forehead, it generally is a little darker because the hair curves downward. If you think of it as a shape, right, it curves downward, and so the light is not reaching there as much. There's a little bit of a dark shadowy part right here, And now I'm gonna blend. You can blend with your typical, you know, tissues or my blending tool. But with hair, I found that it's actually a lot easier for me, at least, to blend with my fingers because much greater control, and I'm able to push the charcoal deep into the paper so that I can blend without affecting the value. So watch this. So this is pitch black, right? And this is pretty white. And if I blend, you can see how I'm not make the value lighter. I'm actually make the value darker. That's one of the benefit or you know, advantage or disadvantage, depends on what you are trying to accomplish. But for hair, I like to use my finger a lot, just because I can just push the hair into the paper. Okay, so now I have the general shape of the hair. Obviously, it's a lot darker than what is presented to us, but this is the point. Now we're gonna grab our little cubes, which is, remember, these are hard rubber eraser that I cut into little cubes, and use one of the sharp edges and simply just drawing the highlights. And when you're drawing the highlights, this is where you gotta be a lot more careful, because the highlights actually defines the shape of the hair a lot more than anything else. They tell the user what the structure of the hair is like. So highlights, you want to, in terms of angle, in terms of curvature, in terms of where the line is, you want to stick somewhat close to the reference, even though sometimes I don't stick 100% close to it, and sometimes I make changes. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm using a sharp edge, and I'm just going over the drawing, and you can see, and based on the amount of pressure you put down, you can adjust how bright and how light it goes. And notice how heavy the charcoal is, and yet I'm able to create very thin and very apparent bright white lines. Another one of the benefit of soft charcoal. So yeah, I'm not going to try to make this exactly the same as the reference. I think you guys all got the idea. And look at that, it's literally what, 2 minutes of work, and we already have a decent result coming up. And if there's little highlights here or there, which they don't, but if there is, you can do something like this, you know, to do the highlights. And any part of the highlight that is too dark, so this now I'm not going to talk about the reference anymore, so I'm gonna just ignore the reference for now. Let's say some part of the highlight is a little bit too bright or not bright enough. Well, not bright enough is easy to fix. Just, you know, do it again, put more pressure down. But if it's too bright for certain parts, just go over it with your finger a little bit. Notice that they just kind of disappears, and then they're no longer that bright. And then you can go over it again if you want to add something back. So practice, this is so easy. Just a little bit of practice and you'll be able to draw realistic hair in, you know, under 10 minutes, no problem. I wouldn't say 5, but actually it's probably 5. But yeah. Alright, so that's the general technique and the principle and the method. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. For this one, for example, the guy's hair, if you want to add details, like for example the hair, he has, you know, these little spikes comes out. You can just add that in there, right? This is my compressed charcoal, but you can use a regular pencil. Effect is the same. And if you want to add a stray hair, hold the pencil, just make sure your wrist is very loose, and you know, just, although it doesn't make sense for this hair because this hair obviously doesn't have stray hair, but you know, just make it really loose and just draw like light lines like so. Get a piece of paper and practice if you're not comfortable with it. You can draw a lot of like stray hair, just this kind of line, really, right? Typically you want the starting point to begin within the hair and ending point to be outside of the hair. Alright, so now you have the general principle. Hopefully I didn't speak too fast or unclearly. I'm going to show you this one that's a little bit more involved and a little bit more structurally complicated. Again, proportions, I don't care. I'm just going to show you guys how to make sure that I have enough space here. Okay, good. First, once you established the area of the hair, just like I said, fill the hair in, and do pay attention to the color if the hair is overly bright in certain parts, and you don't want to put super dark tone down everywhere if you don't have to. If there are parts that's pretty bright, pretty light with a lot of highlights, make the tone a little bit lighter too. But right now, again, not worry about details, just fill in the hair. So we have the shape of the hair, and like before, I'm just gonna blend it. Just to show you the technique and how easy really it is. Even if you don't do it perfectly, it's still gonna show up pretty decent. Because we're gonna add in the highlights and then spend a few minutes adding some details. Again, this is the part where you want to bring out your trusty little cube thingies. Any stray hairs that come out, don't worry about it, we're gonna take care of that later. So we're gonna focus on this part first, and you can see it's kind of like, I need the sharper one. Oh yeah, with these cubes, once the edge is no longer sharp, you can just simply cut a little bit of the edge off, or cut it in half, or just make another one. It's a rubber cube, so yeah. You want the edge to be very sharp, so that you can create that line, that highlight line. Okay. And then from roughly around here, it seems like his hair divides. You can see how the structure, the direction of the hair changes, and just do accordingly with your highlights. That's why I always say that highlights is more important in defining the structure than anything else for this method. And then from here, it seems like his hair comes back down into another angle, right? Sometimes in a lot of my YouTube videos, people comment like, "Oh, how you do that? Do the hair so realistically? Do you use a white pencil or not?" And now you know that I don't use a white pencil. Well, sometimes I have to, but rarely. Most time I prefer to use a compressed, my method, so that if I spray coat it, this whole value is going to be retained. If I use any kind of white powder, like white pencil to draw it, if you spray coat it, the white is going to disappear. I'm doing such a bad job, but hopefully you guys, the idea of the material still goes across. And right now, even though my hair doesn't look quite like his, but you can see how structurally is a little bit closer to what his hair is, even though it's slightly different. Sometimes if you cannot add the highlights you want, it's because you overdid it with the amount of highlight lines. That's why the highlight lines is quite important the first time you do it, because you can pretty much always get a very fresh line. But if you keep doing it, you're gonna push so much charcoal into the paper where it's harder for you to adjust. And to make the hair look natural at this point, I will, before I tweak the inner structure, the surface structure of the hair more, let's look at the outlines, right? So it has something like this comes out. And generally you want to keep everything random. You want the hair to be convincing. You want the form and structure to convey convincingly, but you don't want it to be so detailed that it distracts away from the portrait overall. So now if you look at this, I didn't remember exactly when I started, but this whole two things that I did in just a matter of 10 minutes. And that's why I think it's extremely time efficient. It will save you a lot of energy in the future. I'm trying to think what else I can say about hair. That's why this is like one of the most perplexing or complex topics, right? When people think of when they think about drawing. Even though in reality, if you use my method, it's actually one of the most relaxing part of your drawing actually. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial, little video. I like to make my videos short and to the point, and I hope this demonstration has been helpful. Thank you guys so much for supporting. You're the reason that I can make stuff like this for you. So thank you so much. Any questions? Send me a message. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Cheers!